Innocent man spends 25 years arrange justice against the judge who destroyed his life. Today, we dive into a gripping story from Reddit that will leave you questioning the true nature of justice and betrayal. This is a tale of a man wrongfully convicted and the shocking events that unfolded decades later. We'll uncover how one man's fight for redemption led to a web of corruption, family secrets, and a life altered forever. If you enjoy real-life stories that challenge everything you thought you knew, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more. You won't want to miss this journey into the unexpected twists and turns of this shocking case. On March 5th, 1995, a tragic armed robbery unfolded at First Philadelphia Bank, located at 1234 South Broad Street. During the heist, security guard Thomas Miller lost his life to a fatal gunshot wound. The perpetrator managed to flee with $247,000 in cash. Although security cameras captured footage of the suspect, the individual was masked, and the recordings revealed only a tall African-American male, approximately 6 feet in height. 2 days later, on March 7, 1995, the Philadelphia Police Department arrested 23-year-old Jason Washington at his workplace, Anderson's Auto Repair, located at 3456 North Front Street. The arrest stemmed from an anonymous tip and Washington's general resemblance to the suspect's description. Washington, an auto mechanic with no prior criminal history, was taken into custody without incident. The case against him would soon highlight significant gaps in evidence and procedural fairness. At the time of his arrest, Washington resided at 2789 Diamond Street with his fiancée, Rebecca Turner, a nurse at Pennsylvania Hospital, and their infant daughter, Sharon, born just 7 months earlier on January 15, 1995. Employment records from Anderson's Auto Repair indicated Washington had maintained steady work at the shop since 1992, with a clean record and no disciplinary issues. Colleagues and family alike described him as a dependable, hardworking individual. During his trial at the Philadelphia County Courthouse, Washington presented a compelling alibi. Documentation, including time cards and surveillance footage, placed him at Anderson's Auto Repair during the time of the robbery. Moreover, 3 co-workers, including shop owner Marcus Anderson, provided testimony affirming Washington's presence at work that day. Anderson, in particular, emphasized Washington's strong character, highlighting his reputation for reliability and honesty. Despite this evidence, the trial, presided over by Judge William Hawthorne, was fraught with controversy. Judge Hawthorne, who had served on the bench since 1975, dismissed critical defense evidence, including security footage from the auto shop. The judge also denied several defense motions. On May 1st, 1995, Washington was transferred to SCI Phoenix, a maximum security prison. His intake records documented his lack of a prior criminal history, his automotive certification, and his insistence on his innocence. Despite these factors, the actual perpetrator of the bank robbery was never apprehended. The FBI eventually marked the case as inactive, leaving several critical pieces of evidence, including the stolen $247,000 and the .357 Magnum revolver used in the crime, unaccounted for. In hindsight, a troubling pattern emerged regarding Judge Hawthorne's sentencing practices between 1990 and 1995. Data revealed that African-American defendants were consistently given sentences averaging 40% longer than those of white defendants for similar offenses. These statistics, however, were not available to the public or defense counsel at the time of Washington's trial, preventing their use as a basis for appeal. While incarcerated, Washington sought to make the best of his circumstances. In September 1995, he began working in the prison library, earning $19 per hour. Over the years, he demonstrated commitment and professionalism, eventually being promoted to senior library assistant by 1998, which came with a wage increase to $0.42 per hour. His disciplined approach to managing his finances allowed him to save approximately 80% of his earnings during his 25-year sentence. By the time of his release in April 2020, Washington had accumulated $7,843 in his prison savings account. These funds were the product of decades of consistent labor and careful budgeting, reflecting his resilience and determination despite the profound injustice he endured. Records from the U.S. Postal Service revealed that Jason Washington sent over 300 letters to his daughter Sharon during his incarceration, spanning 25 years from 1995 to 2020. These included heartfelt birthday cards every January 15th, Christmas greetings, and letters commemorating life milestones he could only imagine from behind bars. Unfortunately, prison mail logs indicate all correspondence was returned unopened and marked "Return to Sender" by Rebecca Turner. State vital records confirm that Rebecca Turner married Michael Turner on Valentine's Day in 1996. Later that year, Michael legally adopted Sharon despite Washington's formal objection, which he filed from prison. The Philadelphia Family Court finalized the adoption on August 23, 1996, effectively severing Jason's legal ties to his daughter. This decision marked a devastating blow for Washington, who consistently voiced his opposition to the adoption. While incarcerated, Washington established a reputation as a model inmate. He participated in several educational programs, earning certifications that included GED instruction 1996 to 1998, prison library management 1997, legal research 1999, and computer literacy 1000. His position as a senior library assistant afforded him unique access to legal documents and public records, which he used extensively to educate himself on legal procedures and seek justice for his case. In 2018, while cataloging archived court records, Washington stumbled upon financial documents. Through approved requests, Washington obtained a range of public records about the judge, including details about his case history, property holdings, and affiliations. By the time of his release assessment in April 2020, Washington had accumulated over 2,000 hours of good behavior credits. The report classified him as a low risk for recidivism, but highlighted his unusual focus on researching cases of judicial misconduct and corruption. Despite this, his behavior was described as exemplary, with his primary goals listed as family reconciliation and continued legal study. Washington was discharged from SCI Phoenix on April 17, 2020. His release documents indicated he would initially reside at a transitional housing facility located at 4521 North 5th Street in Philadelphia, part of the prison's re-entry program. Within weeks, he secured employment at Miller's Auto Service starting on April 30, 2020, with an hourly wage of $15. His new role allowed him to return to the automotive work he had excelled in before his arrest. Social services records document Washington's successful reintegration into society. He maintained consistent employment, complied fully with parole requirements, and met all check-in obligations with his parole officer, Helen Roberts, at the Philadelphia Probation Office. Determined to reconnect with his daughter, Washington sent a heartfelt letter to Sharon on May 1, 2020, addressing it to her home at 2187 Pine Street in Philadelphia. The letter was returned unopened on May 5, 2020, marked refused. Philadelphia Directory records revealed that Sharon, now Sharon Bennett, had married James Bennett, a software engineer, in 2019. She worked as an elementary school teacher at Franklin Elementary, a position she held since 2018. The name change following her marriage highlighted the growing distance between her life and the father who longed to reconnect with her. Washington's attempts to reach Sharon continued, with phone records documenting several calls made to her number throughout 2020. These calls went unanswered, and no contact was established. Despite this, Washington persisted, holding on to the hope that one day he might bridge the chasm that had grown between them over the decades. Between May and July 2020, Jason Washington made 17 phone calls to his daughter Sharon, all of which were declined or went directly to voicemail. Text message records show 3 messages were sent during this period, on May 15th, June 1st, and June 15th, but none received a reply. The restraining order was granted on July 15th, 2020. It prohibited Washington from coming within 500 feet of Sharon, her home, her workplace, or any immediate family members. Additionally, it barred him from contacting her through any form of communication, including letters, phone calls, or electronic messages. This legal action further solidified the barrier between Washington and the daughter he had long hoped to reconnect with. On July 20th, 2020, Washington underwent a psychiatric evaluation conducted by Dr. Lauren Smith at the probation office. The assessment noted signs of severe depression and anxiety, compounded by feelings of rejection from his family and lingering trauma related to his wrongful conviction. The report highlighted his growing preoccupation with Judge William Hawthorne, whom Washington increasingly viewed as the root cause of his suffering and the destruction of his life. In August 2020, financial records indicate Jason Washington withdrew his entire prison savings of $7,843 and closed his account at First Philadelphia Bank. Around the same time, he ended his lease at the transitional housing facility without providing a forwarding address. His last paycheck from Miller's Auto Service was collected on August 15, 2020, marking the end of his known employment. From this point forward, Washington's activities became increasingly difficult to track through official records. Security footage from the Philadelphia Public Library shows Washington frequently visiting between August and December 2020. During these visits, he extensively researched Judge William Hawthorne, focusing on the judge's residential address, property holdings, daily routines, and family associations. Library transaction logs reveal multiple printouts of public records related to the judge's assets and activities, suggesting an intensifying preoccupation with Hawthorne's personal life. By his final probation meeting on December 15, 2020, Officer Helen Roberts noted troubling behavioral changes. Though Washington complied with probation requirements on the surface, he had become increasingly withdrawn from rehabilitation programs and refused recommended psychological counseling. Roberts' notes highlighted his obsessive focus on the perceived injustices of his conviction and his concerning interest in Judge Hawthorne, raising red flags about his mental state. Philadelphia Housing Authority records document Washington signing a lease on January 5, 2021 for apartment 3B at 1456 Oak Lane, located just 1.3 miles from Judge Hawthorne's residence at 1788 Germantown Avenue. Property tax assessments valued the judge's home at $2.1 million, underscoring the stark contrast between Washington's modest accommodations and Hawthorne's affluent lifestyle. This proximity further underscored Washington's growing fixation. Local business surveillance footage captured Washington engaging in systematic observation of the judge's routines. Footage from Germantown Cafe shows Washington sitting at the same table each weekday morning between 7:15 and 8:45 a.m., coinciding with Hawthorne's regular breakfast visits. Additionally, recordings from a nearby corner store documented Washington tracking the judge's evening walks from January 10th to January 30th, 2021, further solidifying a pattern of deliberate monitoring. Washington's interactions during this time extended to former inmate Marcus Rodriguez, who had been released from SCI Phoenix in 2019. Rodriguez, who worked as a janitor in the Philadelphia courthouse from 2000 to 2005, became a conduit for Washington to establish contact with Thomas Parker, Judge Hawthorne's former judicial assistant from 1995 to 2002. This connection suggested Washington's attempts to gather insider information about the judge's professional and personal history, deepening concerns about his intentions. Email communications retrieved from Thomas Parker's personal account provided startling revelations about Judge William Hawthorne's extensive corruption. In a statement dated January 25, 2021, Parker described a deeply entrenched system of bribery and judicial misconduct. He detailed how the judge accepted payments from defense attorneys to deliver favorable rulings, laundered illicit funds through offshore accounts, and orchestrated the destruction of incriminating evidence in numerous cases. An analysis of Hawthorne's financial records from 1990 to 2005 uncovered a staggering $1.2 million in unexplained income, alongside property acquisitions worth $3.4 million registered under various shell companies. Cold case files from the Philadelphia Police Department corroborated Washington's suspicions. Cases presided over by Judge Hawthorne frequently showed irregularities, including critical evidence mysteriously disappearing from court records. These findings pointed to a broader pattern of corruption that extended far beyond Washington's case, suggesting systemic malpractice deeply embedded within the judicial system during Hawthorne's tenure. Witness accounts and court staff statements unveiled a disturbing pattern of judicial misconduct tied to Judge Hawthorne. Former employees at the courthouse recounted incidents where unmarked envelopes were routinely delivered to his chambers by criminal defense attorneys, often after regular court hours. These deliveries were accompanied by instructions to staff for the destruction of specific court documents. In high-profile cases, evidence tampering became a recurring theme, favoring certain criminal organizations and obstructing justice in ways that benefited powerful defendants. Records from the Pennsylvania Judicial Review Board revealed 7 formal complaints lodged against Hawthorne between 1990 and 2005. Each complaint was dismissed without an investigation. Internal communications later exposed that members of the review board had received sizable donations from law firms with frequent appearances in Hawthorne's courtroom. This financial influence raised serious questions about the impartiality of the oversight process, allowing systemic corruption to persist unchecked. Jason Washington, operating under the alias Michael Stevens, secured employment with Elite Home Services LLC on January 12, 2021. Employment records showed falsified background information, including a fabricated history with Philadelphia Maintenance Solutions from 2015 to 2020. Surveillance footage captured Washington's first appearance at Judge Hawthorne's residence on January 15, 2021, under the guise of performing maintenance. Access logs indicated he provided regular service between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. 3 days a week. During his time at the judge's residence, Washington systematically exploited his access, as maintenance reports showed him upgrading security systems, modifying electronic locks, and installing additional cameras under the pretense of improving safety. Through scheduled service requests, Washington gained entry to Hawthorne's home office, enabling him to gather critical evidence undetected. Building surveillance later revealed Washington's presence at the property outside his assigned hours, raising alarms about unauthorized activity. Cell tower data corroborated Washington's unscheduled visits to the residence on multiple nights in February 2021. On February 5, records placed him at the property between 11:45 p.m. and 1:30 a.m. Similar data tracked him there on February 12th and February 19th. The medical examiner's report later confirmed the severity of Hawthorne's injuries. The judge had sustained blunt force trauma to the head, likely caused by the impact with the marble staircase. Defensive wounds were noted on his arm, suggesting that he had tried to protect himself during the violent struggle. Forensic evidence from the scene included scattered documents detailing the judge's corrupt activities, a broken laptop containing financial records, and bloodstains that marked the trajectory of the fight. Partial fingerprints matching Washington were found at the scene, further linking him to the confrontation. Security footage captured Washington exiting the premises at 11:02 p.m., carrying a folder full of documents and an external hard drive. Traffic cameras later traced his movements along Germantown Avenue, where he traveled south until 11:45 p.m. The police report indicated that Washington was arrested early the next morning, on February 24, 2021, at 6:15 a.m. at his Oak Lane apartment. In the days following his arrest, a thorough investigation uncovered crucial evidence. Among the items seized from Washington's apartment were copies of the financial records that Hawthorne had tried to hide, along with surveillance equipment and detailed files documenting the judge's corrupt practices. The seized inventory also included falsified employment records and floor plans of Hawthorne's home, proving that Washington had meticulously planned his actions. During his initial police interrogation, Washington remained calm. When asked to explain his actions, he simply stated, "The evidence speaks for itself. 25 years of corruption destroyed lives. He took everything from me, my daughter, my family, my life. The truth needed to come out." The preliminary autopsy report revealed that Hawthorne died from a cerebral hemorrhage caused by the trauma from the fall, with the manner of death ruled as a homicide resulting from a physical altercation. The FBI's forensic analysis of the seized corruption files confirmed their authenticity, verifying offshore account details, legitimate banking transactions, and genuine correspondence linking Judge Hawthorne to a sprawling network of judicial misconduct. The documents contained undeniable proof of bribes being funneled through offshore accounts and shell companies, along with incriminating communications with organized crime figures. Investigators were shocked by the scale of the corruption, which spanned nearly 3 decades, implicating multiple key players within the justice system. Further examination of the materials recovered from Hawthorne's residence revealed a meticulously organized archive documenting widespread criminal activity. Financial records illustrated a clear pattern of bribery, with payments linked to manipulated court cases and biased rulings. The extent of the judge's involvement in orchestrating these illicit transactions. The aftermath of the investigation led to immediate reviews of hundreds of criminal cases tied to the judicial network Hawthorne had been part of. The FBI task force launched a sweeping audit, prompting several high-profile cases to be reopened. The implications of the case were far-reaching, shaking the public's trust in the judicial system and forcing significant reforms. to address the corruption that had been allowed to flourish for decades. In the wake of the scandal, authorities launched a massive investigation into the wide-reaching corruption network that had tainted the judicial system for decades. Dozens of wrongfully convicted individuals were identified, with many of their cases being reopened. In response, authorities froze millions of dollars in illegally gained assets as they began a thorough examination of the financial web that had been built around Judge Hawthorne's dealings. This marked the beginning of an unprecedented effort to bring justice to those affected by the corrupt practices. To address the systemic flaws revealed during the investigation, the Pennsylvania Judicial Review Board enacted significant reforms. These included mandatory financial audits for all judges, stricter oversight on case assignments, and the establishment of new anti-corruption protocols. Independent panels were formed to oversee complaints against judicial figures, ensuring greater accountability and transparency in the future. The state's High Court ordered a comprehensive review of every case Hawthorne had presided over, hoping to uncover the extent of the damage caused by his decisions. As the investigation continued, the scope of the corruption became clearer. Over 150 convictions were vacated, with many defendants receiving restitution for the years they had unjustly served. Numerous legal professionals, including several attorneys and court administrators, faced disbarment, while criminal charges were brought against many who had participated in the scheme. The case became a catalyst for legal reforms that aimed to restore public faith in the justice system. In the midst of the upheaval, Sharon Bennett made a hesitant attempt to reach out to her father, hoping to reconcile after the long years of estrangement. Records from SCI Rockview revealed that Washington was resolute in his decision to remain distant. He showed no desire to rebuild their relationship, requesting that no further attempts be made to contact him. He had closed that chapter of his life, feeling that the wounds were too deep to mend. Sharon, however, expressed her conflicted emotions in a public statement. "Learning the truth about Judge Hawthorne forced me to rethink everything I believed about my father," she said. "His innocence changes everything, but it also changes nothing. The system failed him, and in many ways, I failed him too." She acknowledged the painful reality that, despite the revelation of the truth, some wounds were simply too profound to heal. Current reports from the prison show Washington as a solitary individual, resolute in his decision to avoid any family contact. He has rejected all media interview requests, maintaining his focus solely on the work he believes he was meant to do, exposing the corruption that ruined his life. Psychological evaluations confirm his belief that he has fulfilled his life's purpose. Washington shows little interest in personal rehabilitation or the possibility